NBA playoffs and more up next on Sports Bar. All right, so we got a lot to talk about today, mainly involving the NBA playoffs. Those just kicked off earlier this week. I think one of the biggest games, because it hits closer to home to us, is going to be that Heat-Hornets game that happened. Honestly, just what did y'all think was a main factor in the Heat's surprising win, and what do you think that the Hornets can do to bring it back later in the series, if anything?
I mean, I wouldn't say that it was surprising that the Heat won, but certainly you think exactly. You think it would be more competitive.
Yes.
I mean, they split the season series with the Heat, and you know the run that the Hornets had been on. You think this game is going to be closer, but I think this game was a product of the Heat just being that good on that particular night, and the Hornets being that bad on that particular night.
So.
Yeah, and the Heat were playing at home. But I definitely think it's very important for the Hornets to try to pull one back here in Game 2 before they head back to Charlotte, because even though the Hornets have been just lights out at home all year, you know that's definitely going to be a real momentum killer for both the team and kind of the city, frankly. And that you want to have positive thoughts heading into Game 3 to try to get it turned around.
I think digging yourself out of that hole, or not allowing that 2-0 hole to happen, is really what's important for these series. If you look at history in the NBA playoffs, 2-0 is hard to come back from. But I think Charlotte can make a game plan and maybe scrounge out a win at Miami once.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even in as bad as that game was yesterday, in the early portion of the third quarter, 9 minutes left, down by 22. I didn't think the game was over because I'd seen Charlotte come back from bigger deficits against the Spurs and a few other really good teams. So I think they have the ability to, even if they get down again in Game 2, I think they have that comeback ability. But they have to be able to hit from outside. They putting up prayers most of the night, and outside of Batum, no one else could really hit. I even think maybe Troy Daniels should possibly even get a better look. I mean, Daniels, when he has played this year. That's really the whole reason he's been on the floor, is to put him up, and he's done a pretty good job of that. So we'll see kind of what game changes Steve Clifford makes for Game 2.
Yeah, and one of the big reasons why I wanted to bring up this first, it is our Sports Bar score of the week, the 123-91, just huge deficit. But I think one of the biggest things about it, not only did the Heat break a franchise playoff record for most points in a game for the playoffs, did it without LeBron for one, which, I mean, a lot of people were like, well, if you're going to break a record, it might as well be with him. But not only for the game, but most points in the first quarter, they had 41, 42.
44, I believe.
I think it was 42 to begin it.
Well, either way.
Yeah, but either way, that's something that just, like, that's hard to come back from, because the Hornets only had, like, 23 in that. And, I mean, they still fought pretty well the rest of the game, but that... You can't let them get up on you that much early on. You lose momentum, you lose morale, you lose everything. I think if they want to win the series, if they want to win the next game, they have to come out strong. They can't sit back, which is something. I mean, you occasionally run into a buzzsaw, and even for the best of teams, if that other team is just coming out and they're just having one of those nights. And you definitely aren't. You're not trading baskets on those kind of games or in those kind of games. It's really tough.
I think the buzzsaw was definitely Luol Deng too. So.
Oh yeah, 11 for 14 and 30 some odd points.
That's hard. There's nothing you can do about it from a defensive standpoint.
Exactly.
And a lot of those were from threes, which, like you were saying, like Charlotte has to shoot from outside. I mean, they had Luol Deng shooting from outside. It's just I've never seen him shoot that well.
Well, I mean, Charlotte had the best 3-point percentage. Or the third best, in the league this year, which was crazy considering that playoff team, playoff team from 2013, or well, I guess technically the 2014 playoffs. That had Kemba Walker and Al Jefferson, but really outside of those two guys, no one else was on that squad, and that team was certainly not hey, we're going to put it up from outside. They averaged like 93 points a game. So even though they flipped the whole roster over. this particular series against that same team kind of got off to a similar start.
What's their playoff shtick? That's what they need to find out.
Yeah.
What are they going to rely on throughout the whole playoffs?
And I don't believe that Al Jefferson can be terribly effective in this particular series with the Heat's size, with Whiteside, and even Amari Stoudemire. I mean, speaking of which, I thought Stoudemire played much better in that game than he had really a lot of the season, and what I kind of come to expect out of Amari Stoudemire anymore. I mean, he's not a young guy, frankly, and a lot of knee surgeries later. Yeah. And so he matched up pretty well against Jefferson. So I need more out of Lynn, Walker, Marvin Williams. All those guys need to play better.
Most of the team.
Yeah.
So aside from the Heat-Hornets matchup, what were some of the big games that you saw, some of the better series that might be happening? I personally think that the Cavalier-Pistons was way too closer than I thought it would be. Which is weird. Like the Hornets was more apart. So what did y'all see in that game, or any other games? Spurs were doing well against the Grizzlies. Like just what do y'all think about the other?
Travis was talking about Reggie Bullock and.
Yeah.
A shout out to Carolina for Detroit, and
they were playing awesome for most of that game
against the Cavs too. So against a worthwhile opponent like the Cavs, I think Detroit has definitely picked up on this win and definitely needs to take advantage on it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they dropped the game, but they were,
right at the end.
Yeah, right at the end, which was what was kind of saddening because they played so well. It was interesting to know. I mean. This doesn't always transfer for the playoffs, but Detroit won the season series 3-1 against the Cavs, oddly enough. I don't know if that was necessarily a matchup issue for them or, Detroit was just really playing hot, and frankly they weren't, that night. But I really think they can possibly push this to like a 6-game series. I mean, if they steal one in Cleveland, which I think they can do given their performance, the other night, and then they're pretty good at the Palace. I mean, even dating back to, the Chauncey Billups days, which has been a while back, but they've been pretty tough, at home traditionally. So I think this can go 6.
Do you think that they could go ahead and beat the Cavs, or do you think that? Okay.
I don't see them winning the series. I mean, like as good as I think they are, I think Cleveland is that much better from just a purely
if you're getting Kevin Love, Kyrie Irving, and LeBron James with over 20 points, and all of them getting over 20 points.
And what Cleveland possesses really in those 3 guys that, in my opinion, Detroit doesn't really have any of really, is just a single player who can take over the game and wheel you to a victory, which is really what you need in the playoffs. You need at least one guy on your team. It's like, okay, that's Johnny Buckets over there. We get him the ball. We get him the ball. He can at least score for us. Yeah. Even Morris played terrific in that game for Detroit. I've already mentioned Bullock. I think Reggie Jackson played pretty well, but I don't think any of those guys are the go-to kind of caliber player that. Obviously not LeBron James, or Kyrie Irving, or even Kevin Love is, for that matter.
For sure.
So there's that one. There's that matchup. The Warriors are just sort of playing around with the Rockets. They're not going to really worry. Spurs came out strong. I'm really hoping for a good postseason for the Spurs because it's going to be Tim Duncan's last season as well. So I want to see him do some big things. No pun intended. But yeah, so is there any matchup that you're looking forward to that might, stretch out or might be an upset or something like that?
I mean, a matchup that just surprised me with how it went was the Dallas OKC matchup.
Yes.
And just what a beating that OKC put down on Dallas.
Though. I mean, I think Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant are not feeling like they get the respect in the NBA that they should. And
not anymore.
Not anymore. Yeah. But I mean, I think that talent, when you have Russell Westbrook, especially, I've been a Russell Westbrook fan since he's come into the league.
And he's grown a lot too. He started off really strong. But man, he's grown over the years. He's one of the better players in the NBA.
Exactly. He came into the league just as a playmaker, but I mean he couldn't shoot. I mean he was historically bad.
But he still shoots.
I mean people gave LeBron James a hard time coming to the league. You can't shoot. No, like in comparison, Russell Westbrook just couldn't shoot.
He's up there with Kobe, but just you're taking too many.
Yeah, but
Kobe can make them.
Yeah, but Westbrook though, I mean now, I mean after he's worked on his game as much as he is, or much as he has, rather, I mean he's very respectful from deep and from long two, even though a lot of people don't really shoot that. I mean, yeah, statistically speaking, it doesn't really pan out anymore. But in that game, just the performance they had really flexed their muscles. I mean, I was actually surprised that Dirk, even though Dirk is Dirk, but he was the only thing that could get, or the only one who could get anything going for Dallas in that game. So watch out for OKC, because I think they will be a much stronger task than some people think.
It's the Wild West, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Who do y'all see going all the way? I mean, I kind of want to see Durant and Westbrook get a ring, but I don't think they're going to make it that far.
It's who's beating the Warriors? Who can stand a chance against the Warriors?
And honestly, I think just having watched some of those games recently with the Warriors Spurs, and not even really taking into consideration the Warriors OKC games from earlier in the year. But I actually think that OKC might be a tougher matchup for the Warriors, frankly.
Do you think it's because of their athleticism, or is it just their star power? What is it?
I mean, well, for one
Spurs
thing,
have star power too. I mean, Kawhi Leonard just got named Defensive Player of the Year. They have good players on their team. But it might come down to the mat, because Russell Westbrook will play defense on Steph. He can keep the hustle up and down the court.
Yeah.
So I mean, it just comes down to the I think age is probably going to be the big factor.
And there also isn't the small factor of Kevin Durant. Let's not forget about that guy.
Yeah.
I mean, him single-handedly, I think, is why they are more dangerous, at least in my opinion, to the Warriors right now. Because really no one matches up with Kevin Durant, league-wide. I mean, he has a particular skill set that no one else really has.
All right, Liam Neeson.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's true. And so I think he could will them to a victory, maybe over a Spurs kind of caliber team.
But how many times can he do it, though? That's the thing.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. But I think they have a decent shot at that series. But for the most part, I would pick the Warriors out of the West. And really, I mean, after watching the Detroit-Cleveland game, even though Cleveland pulled it out, I mean, who's the favorite right now in the East? Because, I mean, Miami looked terrific. Miami certainly looked better.
But will they keep it up, though?
I mean, we'll see. I mean, hopefully, I hope they don't, as a Hornets fan. And Toronto looked pitiful.
Yeah.
I mean, Toronto is just, kind of, but not really, because, I mean, Toronto hasn't won a playoff game in a very long time.
Yeah.
Even though they continue to make the playoffs, they really struggle in the playoffs historically the last 5 or 6 years. So I don't see them coming out of the East.
Do you think they put together something with such like not even a bad overall record? They were third or second in the East.
Yeah, second.
In the East.
They had a terrific regular season. They're the Cincinnati Bengals of the NBA. They just can't win in the playoffs.
Oh, that hurts.
But so I think the East is somewhat of a toss-up. I guess I would still pick Cleveland just because.
Who's your second then?
It's hard to pick against LeBron James. Honestly, right now, just based off Game 1 scenarios, I think the Heat are probably my second. And honestly, with the way Indiana played,
I like that.
Indiana's right up there because again they have they have their own Johnny Buckets. They have Paul George. And he couldn't be stopped. So we'll see.
Paul George was electrifying before he got his leg injury in the USA game. So hopefully that'll bring him up, and maybe that'll pump him up to do a little bit better for the Pacers, because I know the Pacers were definitely a force to be reckoned with 2 years ago.
Exactly. Yeah. Powerhouse that they used to
for sure.
Yeah, now speaking of Paul George, he actually was featured in the latest 2K17 commercial, which is dedicated to Kobe Bryant in his career. And he was saying it was just a bunch of people like, I am still Kobe Bryant, or the haters saying like, I still hate Kobe Bryant, this, that, the other. But honestly, Kobe went out strong in his final game, so we're going to shift away from the playoffs real fast. 60 points. 60 points for a man who's, surgeries, health problems, this, that, the other. Like, Shaq asked him to get 50. He just one-upped him on that. So we actually have, as our Sports Bar Play of the Week. We actually have multiple plays. We're just going to do a quick montage of some of Kobe's final game, if we could play that real fast.
And during this game, man, they would just pass it to him whenever. They didn't.
Oh yeah.
Didn't matter.
Well,
it was definitely it was the Kobe show
Exactly.
for sure, and it was planned from the beginning.
But
it was still
playing,
nice to see.
He was playing somewhat like old Kobe with some of the shots. But one thing that it was just sad to see is you can see him just going like straight down into the paint. I think there's one coming up soon. Just if this was the old Kobe, this would be a dunk. He can't get up there like he used to, and it's kind of sad to see. But he still had the crazy layups. He had the threes. Not really. Yeah, that should have been a slam. But it's
got those old legs. So, but I mean, 60 points on 52 shots.
And that's the 60th right there.
Yeah.
Just that free throw. Yeah, that was. I mean, went out strong. I'm happy for him. It's been a great career. It's kind of sad to see him go, though.
I mean, he's certainly a special breed, just because. When you have Magic Johnson saying you're the best Laker of all time, which was, that's definitely high praise.
I mean, third all-time scoring. So
exactly, and how many people have won at least 5 NBA titles? Not many. Not many people.
Nope.
So I mean, you got to go back to those. Frankly, some of the Lakers and Celtics teams from way back in the day, outside of Jordan, obviously.
Yeah.
And so it really. I've never really been much of a Kobe fan, just because I just didn't necessarily like his demeanor.
Because the Hornets traded him, and you're a huge Hornets fan.
Well, no. I mean, listen, I was. Was I even born? I'm not sure I was, and we were the Bobcats. No, I wasn't born. So yeah. So if it was then, so so I'm not really salty about that.
Yeah.
For him, and as much as he liked to compare himself to Jordan, I almost kind of wish that he would have been able to have some help these last 3 seasons.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, because
some of his rings came with like Shaq and some other big.
I mean, not only Shaq, but I mean, Pau Gasol.
Yeah.
I mean, he gets somewhat disrespected, I think, for the important role that he played on those championship teams, or team rather. But for Kobe though. You can't really say that you left anything, out there to be done. I mean, he did everything he possibly could, even in these last 3 seasons where, what did he have out there with him? Swaggy P. I don't think Swaggy P is going to help you make the playoffs, let alone win a world championship.
It'll help you get media attention, though.
For all the wrong reasons.
Yeah. But no, so we mentioned it before. Tim Duncan's going to be going to. I don't think he's going to get as much praise. He's still on the top 25 for the scoring list. He's still up there. And I think one of the biggest things is Kobe, as we were talking last episode, he really sort of helped solidify the game, change the game in a few different ways. You can't see someone throw a piece of trash into a trash can without shouting Kobe. It's just one of those things. I think Tim Duncan's going to be a more quiet retirement, honestly. Like, especially if they don't make it too far into the playoffs, which I mean they're going to make it pretty far. Again, we don't think that we're going to beat the Warriors, or they're going to beat the Warriors. But I just feel like like you were saying about Pau, for the role that he's played in San Antonio, for the rings that he's gotten and stuff, it's kind of sad to like not see that media attention a lot of the times. I mean, do y'all have anything to say about that, or just the Spurs in general with Ginobili, Parker?
How many times has Spurs won the championship in the last 10 years?
Well, not in the last 10 years, but I was going to say, we were just talking about how many people have won 5. Timmy Duncan's on that list.
Yeah.
There you go.
Timmy Duncan's won 5, which is a big deal. And I don't think he wants, it to be a flashy, out. That's just not kind of who he is. Even back when he played for Wake Forest.
Yeah.
I know a few people who kind of sort of like knew him when he played at Wake, and they were just like, yeah, like Tim didn't really do anything. He just kind of like hung out and played a lot of video games and went to basketball practice, and that's kind of the approach he's had, really his whole NBA career. So I think, certainly San Antonio should have a nice spread for him, so to speak, Nick, or when that time comes.
Yeah, like Kobe's final game, the tickets were selling for like $27,000 for the courtside. They had pictures, like
Yeah.
everything.
It's a different dynamic.
It's the Staples Center.
Yeah.
It's
LA.
It's the gold and the purple,
Yeah.
for the Lakers. But
I think it's just like a totally different dynamic for how these two are retiring. One's retiring in a slump and with no championship sights in the last 3 or 4 years. And you have Tim Duncan. He's been great pretty much every year.
I mean, the Spurs have gone
Well,
Spurs
far. Yeah.
And Tim Duncan's trail off has been less documented as Kobe's because Tim Duncan had players around him.
Yes.
Now, I mean, no bits about it. Tim Duncan is not the player he was even 2 seasons ago. Is particularly not now. I mean, there was a few games ago he played 9 minutes in a game that really mattered.
A lot of the footage you see of Tony Parker, Tim Duncan, and Ginobili are just them like cheering on the bench for their team.
Their
that's
highlights
out there.
are getting
They're just
withered.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Patty Mills passes to Kawhi Leonard, for the dunk or whatever.
Yeah.
But he's still very effective, as a big man. He's been one of the better passers since he came into the league, and it still is. And just his savvy. I don't know if he wants to get into coaching. I don't know if he's fiery enough for that, but I think he'd be a very good mentor.
I don't know if he's talkative enough for it.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if he's talking enough to be a coach, but I think he'd be a very good mentor, particularly to other big men. I wouldn't be surprised at all if I just mentioned Wake. I mean, I don't know, how necessarily close his relationship is there still with the university. I imagine it's still very good, considering he played there all 4 years.
Yep.
I wouldn't be surprised at all if he went down there and tried to help, Coach Manning do something with that Wake organization.
Well,
It's kind of tanking.
Speaking of like mentoring, do you think that's a big part of why Kawhi Leonard is becoming the amazing player that he is? And again, I think it's just something about the Spurs because Defensive Player of the Year, Kawhi Leonard, two years in a row. He just doesn't get that much attention, but he plays his heart out. He gets the points, he gets the rebounds, the blocks, the steals. Like, it's crazy. The Spurs just aren't about the media attention. So.
I mean, I think his tutelage has not only been from Tim Duncan, but I mean from the rest of the veterans on that team that have been through most of that.
Yeah.
I mean, Tony Parker, Ginobili, we just mentioned it. I mean, all those guys, can share some wisdom, for what they've all done in their careers and how successful they've been, and it's almost an embarrassment of riches, really, for the Spurs because, the NBA is really dependent on, hey, can you keep this particular group together? And the Spurs have done that for so long with this core group. Mm-hmm. And now, I mean, with the way it's looking, assuming they lock it down with kind of this next grouping, are probably set for another 5 years, for the most part. And they have to maybe retool to compete with the Warriors, seeing if they can kind of keep their whole, unit together. But really, the Spurs organization can kind of do no wrong, in my opinion.
The Spurs organization has been what they've been doing. They've been organized, and they've been getting great picks. They've been picking up great players. But can you say the same about the Lakers? Like the Lakers, seeing the Lakers next season and seeing the Spurs next season is just like, wow, total polar opposites.
But, I mean, that's been the past few years
for the Lakers.
But I really think reality will hit the fan next year for the Lakers because with no Kobe, all of a sudden, people are actually caring about the product on the court. Yeah. I mean, not that people want to lose, but these last few years really have, like we said, been the Kobe show. So they need to make some.
Well, Linsanity happened for a little bit too before.
Well, I mean, yeah, but he just was physically on the team. There was no Linsanity about that.
There was like that 1, maybe 2 games.
He had a few games. Jeremy Lin has certainly been better as a Hornet than he was as a Laker. And I'm glad he is a Hornet.
In total, yeah.
But,
death by the Mamba. That's how it goes.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, they have a young core. I mean, if that talent were to kind of cultivate itself and possibly they make a few splashes in free agency. I mean, it's Los Angeles. It's the Lakers. You should be able to get someone to come there.
Should be able to sell it.
Exactly. It's not the world's hardest sell.
Yeah. So we only have a couple minutes left. I guess just like we were saying, Kobe's leaving, Duncan's leaving. There are some teams that still have like this core group, but who do you think the big names are going to be for like some of the newer players in the league that are coming up? I mean, we still have LeBron, we still have Durant, Westbrook, all them. But I mean, they're not going to be around forever. We got to start looking at like this new wave. I mean, who do you think some of the bigger names are going to be?
Who's going to follow Curry?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Curry's obviously in that conversation.
Yeah.
I mean,
aside from the obvious.
Yeah, Well, we just mentioned Kawhi. I mean, Kawhi is not a old guy certainly. I mean, I think he'll be another face of the league. Anthony Davis. I think Drummond for the Pistons.
As long as Davis comes back healthy after the surgery.
Yeah, I mean, obviously health, is included with all these people, but Davis, Drummond. Several other players come to mind. Really a lot of the Celtics.
I was about to say that. A lot of the Celtics.
A lot of the Celtics roster, which generally.
The Celtics-Hawks series is looking like it's going to be a good one too.
Exactly.
Just coming up. We didn't touch on that earlier, but that should be a good one.
Yeah, exactly. They're both very competitive, and any given night, both of those teams have the ability to really kind of go off. But I think the NBA, just generally speaking, is in good hands with the talent that's coming through. We really quickly, I was talking about keeping that grouping together.
Yeah.
I think Harrison Barnes, if he were to ever leave Golden State, could be a real factor
He'll make
somewhere
a name
else.
for himself.
He could be a real factor somewhere else. So Black Falcon 2020 maybe when I'm the Hornets. I'd like to see that, but there's a time and a place for that, and I guess that's not.
You know what? The Warriors will have to restructure some contracts. So.
Oh yeah. Because if people are going to get paid eventually.
If they keep on winning at least.
Exactly.
So we'll see.
All right, well, I guess that about does it for today. As always, I'd like to invite you guys to leave your questions, comments, concerns, anything you like at www.watchapptv.com. And until next time, I'm Robin Palmer.